50% of women abandon their careers in tech by the age of 35.
We think that's unacceptable, and it's exactly why we started this podcast.
I'm Jo Keneally, tech veteran and writer.
And I'm Jarisha Nadaraju, product ops leader and startup advisor.
We're The Other Half, a podcast for ambitious women navigating their way.
This episode is brought to you by PCX Pay, helping businesses move money across borders with speed, clarity, and control. Simplify your payments infrastructure at pcxpay.com. We've partnered with Clue for Season 3 of The Other Half. Clue is the science-backed period and cycle tracking app that helps you understand your body, from cycle predictions and hormone insights to fertility tracking and mood patterns. As a listener of The Other Half, you have exclusive access to a whole free year of Clue Plus. Just head to the link in the show notes to claim it.
On today's episode, we're joined by Annalise and Zoe, co-founders of Aslin Software, a mission-driven investment platform. We discussed their decision to start the company, how they're challenging the conventional investor playbook, and what it means to build a value-aligned business in practice. Annalise, Zoe, welcome to The Other Half.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you for joining us. We're very excited to speak to you today. So, you are both co-founders of Azlin Software, but prior to starting that company, you both had really interesting careers as investors in some of the biggest names in tech. So HG, Sapphire, Atomico, very prestigious jobs. What made you decide to leave that world and to start your own thing?
I think for me, I've always been trying to do the more entrepreneurial things, even within larger organizations. When I'm learning things for the first time or doing things for the fifth time, I always ask the question, is there a way to do it better? And then I think the best setting of actually fulfill that drive, that vision, is setting up your own company. And we are really free to design everything according to our core values and make all the decisions based on first principles. So after years of working for other people, we also got more confidence with the experience to actually come out and start Aslin Software.
And I would add, I think for myself as well, growing up, you have these dreams of what you want to be when you grow up. And I think for me, I always had this inkling in the back of my mind, like I wanted to start something of my own. I just didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. I had this amazing role model in my dad, who actually started his own real estate investing firm and grew that. And that's the world that I grew up and saw. And I was like, well, this is what I want to do. I just didn't know exactly what form and shape and strategy and team and all of those additional questions, what exactly it would look like. And then the more that I spoke with Zoe and we crystallized our idea of Azlin Software, that all came into place, and now feel incredibly lucky and grateful to be living out that dream.
Very cool. I definitely think there's something about people who are attracted to the, startup or startup adjacent world in investing, that everyone has that slight entrepreneurial bug, which makes you great founders, possibly not always great employees, but that's a different story. Was there a specific moment or realization that tipped you both from, okay, I'm thinking about starting something, to actually, we're going to go do this?
Yeah, I think for Zoe and I, it was actually a quite organic process. You mentioned we each had this kind of entrepreneurial DNA, in our previous investing firms. Both of us opened up offices. Zoe was doing that for a London-based firm, but in San Francisco. I was doing that in London, but for a San Francisco headquartered firm. And both of us were kind of, flying back and forth in each other's cities, and we would catch up. At that time, it was a lot on, deals and what's happening in the market. But I think that just evolved into ideas that we had, things that we were reading, things that we were inspired by. And more, I think that just then kind of snowballed into discussions of we should be starting a company together.
Yeah, we used to joke that founders have this singular drive of, this is something I'm going to build regardless of all the risks, versus investors think about everything, upsides, downsides. So even when we were very determined to become founders, we still have the investor gene. So we actually sat down, went through a co-founder questionnaire. I think it was like 9 hours in total across multiple Zoom sessions to really understand each other's values, strength, weakness. Because although we've been friends for a long time, having a co-founder is the next level. By the end, we were like, actually, we are perfect as co-founders. We have complementary strength but fully aligned values, and let's just do this. And then we then went out and spoke with 150 different people, investors, founders, and with different business models to be like, let's still gather all the data and know everything before we settle down our idea.
That's so interesting. Do you feel like that helped you, like looking back on it now? Or do you feel maybe it was a bit too much like analysis at that stage, Because in a way you can, like you said, you were coming with that mindset, so you put so much of time going through all of these things. Was it the process itself that helped you, you think, or was there stuff from there that was actually valuable?
I think the first thing is like Zoe and I, we decided we wanted to work together. And we were like, okay, we are going to build something together. And then I think it was more of those conversations and kind of benchmarking exercise that we did of like, okay, both of us are experiences in B2B software and investing in B2B software companies, but exactly what type of investment company do we want to build? Where do we want to be playing in the market? What exactly in terms of crystallizing our strategy? And I think those conversations, we spoke to a wide range of different B2B software investors and builders. And I think those were all great inputs. But then it was a chance that Zoe and I, we could sit back, we could say, okay, if we are actually build something that's truly authentic and genuine to us and is really rooted in our core values, what does that look like? So I think it was helpful, but we didn't go into those conversations being like, oh, we want to copy what this firm does or this part. It was more gathering the inputs and then starting from who we are as a team.
Yeah, that's a really great approach to have taken. And it kind of leads me into my next, or my question to both of you is about Aslin, because Aslin's model is quite different from a traditional VC or PE approach. And what you do is you acquire vertically specialized B2B software companies and you hold them for quite a long time. So for the long term, as opposed to, trying to get a quick exit from what I understand. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. So it would be interesting to know, can you explain how that works and, why you believe this is a better approach?
We describe Aslin Software as a company of companies, and the companies are also the companies that have a shared mission and shared vision that ultimately provide better service and care for families. So it doesn't mean Aslin is the perfect model for every company out there. It means Aslin is the right model for the companies we want to work with and grow for the long term, generate impact way beyond financial returns. And the companies within the group have the full flexibility and autonomy to operate independently, but at the same time, we think there's so much organic sharing, learning when you are building this group of companies that's like working in the similar or adjacent areas. And when we think about companies, these are not the VC type going for 100x growth companies. They're the ones that have achieved product market fit with a really, really loyal customer base and often still founder owned, founder run with this deep care for their employees, for their customers, for their product. So it's like the founders' babies. And then they want to find the perfect home. And we build Aslin Software to be the perfect home. And our decision making is all based on, for the long term, what's the right thing for the customers, for the team, and for the product.
That's very interesting. My background is in finance and accounting and investing. So I used to do that, but from like a structured credit debt financing point of view. And I think that what you've mentioned there about really thinking about what's best almost for the customers of those businesses, right? So you are very much, it's like, sounds like you're aligning yourselves with almost what the founder would want, with their baby, and to get the right match, I assume that, it's going to feel pretty good on both sides because you're truly aligning yourselves with them, and they want to grow it in the same way and the same mindset that you're taking. So that's a great approach to be taking with that.
Yeah, I think if I can add, I think it's a lot of founders, you've put so many years of your life, so much energy into building the company. Like they care really deeply about their team, their employees, their customers. And I think for us, it's like when that company becomes part of Aslin Software, like we take it really serious that then we're taking also on the legacy of that founder. And so we want to be providing the same type of customer service to their customers that they expect, and also the genuine care for their employees. And I think we have seen that that really resonates with founders and operators of these companies because, as you said, like that's their mindset, that's how they think about the world as well.
Yeah, with the traditional exit options for founders, they always worry about losing control, worry about how the companies would grow after they sell the company. Like selling the company is almost like fully giving up the dream you've built for decades. Whereas what we're building as Aslin Software, all the interactions we've had with founders, some we invested in, some we're still in ongoing dialogue, they're getting comfortable very quickly on the losing control point because there's no, number one, no real losing control. Number two, they can see how we're set up to have fully aligned incentives. So we would never make decisions that's wrong for the founders or for their initial vision.
Yeah. You've described that your companies, you've described it as companies maintaining their autonomy while leveraging Aslan central support. That's what I think how it works. So how do you strike that balance between, empowering the founders and adding value from the center? You've kind of touched on it a little bit already, but I'd love to just find out a bit more about that.
Yeah, so for us, as Zoe was saying, we see Azlin Software as this company of companies. So it is providing the teams with the autonomy to be able to make their own decisions, to push their ideas forward when that comes to how they want to build software and sell software. But I think for us is we have seen many times that building a company on your own can be lonely. So part of being part of the Aslin Software group is that you join a community of like-minded peers who are all building B2B software around the same theme and serving providers of family services and care. And so with that, it's joining a community so that you can go faster together. And with that also comes sharing of best practices, being part of this group where you can actually access more shared resources and infrastructure together. These are all things that we don't push down on any of our companies, but actually we see them asking for more help. And one of the key ones, and was actually the first hire that we made at our group level with our head of engineering, was setting up a central innovation team, because one of the core pillars that we have is really around technology and future-proofing products and thinking 5-10 years in the future, how are you continuing to be a market-leading product? And so this central innovation team currently is spending a lot of time in the AI world, building out different features and functionality and internal tools that our companies can use. But that's, I think, just one example of how being part of the bigger group of companies can be quite beneficial, but it's still, everything is done in quite a tailored way to the companies within our group.
Very interesting. It's also quite refreshing to hear because I think I know you're not like traditional investors anymore, but a lot of investors will always say, we're founders first, we're founders first. But the reality is they're fund first, founder second. And so I think, giving people that like reassurance, I can see how it develops like into a stronger relationship. And you've touched a bit on the community aspect already, but I know that, you have built this like Azlin Software collective, and that community piece is core to kind of like the value offer. So I guess kind of two questions on that part was like, one, why did you first decide that that community part would be quite important to you? But also, secondly, how do you actually nurture that community? Because having run several community groups in the past, sometimes people are really engaged and sometimes they're really not. So, do you have any kind of advice around that?
Yeah, I think that's Joe how we got introduced by a member of the Aslin Software community way back. I mean, I think this is something that Zoe and I we didn't set out to build. It just organically happened. You know, both of us have a decade of experience investing in B2B software and have been very fortunate to work with some amazing builders, be that CEOs or other members of management, executive teams, or people who just are amazing at their function and what they do. And so then when we were kind of just chatting with our networks and sharing a bit of, hey, we have this idea, we're thinking about starting this type of investment firm, I'm going to call it Aslin Software, people were like, wow, this sounds amazing. How can I help? I want to support this, be part of it. And so from that, we just created this community, which I think has now just grown over time and continues to grow. So now it's 100 people plus, more than 100 people strong across New Zealand, Australia, US, Canada, Ireland, UK, kind of all of the markets and areas that we touch. And I think we're just incredibly grateful for that help and support.
Yeah, we are very grateful because I think the starting point is all these amazing software operators and experts heard what we were building, heard our vision, thinking this is a better model of supporting these small vertical software companies. And then they lend us their support without expecting anything in return. And some things we're doing to actually maintain this community is we actually ask for help when there are topics that we're dealing with, either when we were diligencing a potential company for investing in, or we're helping our portfolio companies on specific topics, like setting up an outbound sales motion in a particular area. We go talk to our experts, and then they feel they're really generating impact and helping younger companies and feeling the sense of achievement. We also keep everyone updated on our latest activities. So some of them are really at the life stage where they're thinking about coaching other entrepreneurs, coaching younger management team, or they're ready to jump in to take on an interim role. So a lot of organic activities to bond the community together. I would say I had to shamelessly, quote unquote, ask for help, and then that actually made us all tighter together.
I think also I would just add, again, kind of organically, but it's a very diverse group of individuals. And that means from, you know, the areas that they focus on, where they are in the world, what they look like. But I think there's something there where everyone was also quite passionate and inspired about the theme that we're focusing on around family services and care, and wanting to be like, okay, these are actually companies that, yes, are B2B software, so are directly serving a provider, but then the ultimate impact is having on families. And I think everyone in that community as well has run into that, if that's dealing with like a daycare nursery software that's like terrible even for the parent, to, you know, being then with an elderly relative in like a care facility and having to navigate that. And so I think there was just this really also like shared part of wanting to be part of our mission to bring just better software to those providers so that they can ultimately spend their time providing better care or better experience.
I remember that was something that really stood out in like my first conversation with you, Annalisa, because you were like, we don't have a full picture yet, but we want to build something that actually is values aligned, but also that matters. And you had mentioned some of those things. Also, I think some of the point you made is really interesting, but it's come up quite a few times in this season, specifically around like asking for help as like a superpower. It is amazing how many people have said that like it's something they've had to learn, but that actually it does just make not only your life easier, but it's actually a really great way to build connection. And I think it's just like so interesting to see that theme come up again and again.
I was just gonna I just wanted to add one follow to Joe's point. That is a huge thing to be able to do, is to ask for help. And I know a lot of people that are founders or building things, and some of them tend to go off into like, a little hole or room while they're in stealth mode and be building and doing that, and not really wanting to share that with people yet, or a network, or announce it, or say I'm doing this when it's early. Was that very intentional from your side to say let's open it up to our networks and our community straight away, and almost be like building in public to some extent? Because I think that's quite an important thing to be doing.
It is very intentional. Actually, our first value is collective strength. We mentioned many times about community, mentioned if you want to go far, you go together. We deeply believe in, if your differentiation or your mode is not telling anyone what you're doing, then that's not a sustainable differentiation. If you're building something that's truly differentiating, then the more people know about it, the better. So we were actually very open from the very beginning, even before we had answers to a lot of the things we were designing. And then for both of us as female co-founders in the space, in a still very male dominated space, we also want to be role models and pioneers in ways that can inspire more women coming into this type of investing, this type of company building.
I would just definitely echo what Zoe has said, and I think for me, I'm almost on the other side of the spectrum. Like I've had no issues ever, like just sending someone a message on LinkedIn or an email or calling someone or reaching out. I think I think though, like there are especially a lot of like women who are just starting in their careers, and they're afraid to do that. And I think that's one of my biggest advice. Like no matter kind of what area you are, if you're thinking about starting a business or you want to join a certain company, or you see that, wow, it's a really interesting startup, I want to learn about it, I would just say, like, put yourself out there, like reach out. Like the worst case is that someone doesn't respond, but I found that people genuinely, they want to be helpful, and they want that, they will respond. They'll take a few minutes out of their day to chat with you. And as you said, it's a great way to then build a new connection and to build your network like organically. And when I was like beginning my career, the first company I worked for was LinkedIn, which is kind of then the manifestation of this, like software wise. But I didn't think about this of like, oh, I'm reaching out to all these people in order to build my network. It was just, I was curious. I wanted to learn. But I think also over time, then those relationships compound. Then you start to get to know people for a decade plus. And now here we are starting, Aslin Software a few years into the journey. And I think there's all these people that, in your professional career that you've gotten to know who continue to help you.
For sure. I couldn't agree more with that. And I think also the part you said about, you reach out to people who are, curious to speak to. It's like, that's what makes it authentic, right? Because I think sometimes people are worried about being transactional or coming across as sleazy. But like, if you actually want to speak to this person and find them interesting, then like go for it, That's always going to be well received. Jumping back into actually the, like, I guess day to day of your business. So you've gone from an idea, you now actually acquire companies, but I'd love to know a bit more about, maybe you could, you are focused in that family services space, but could you give us maybe an example of one of the companies you work with, and also what made them like a right fit to join?
Yeah, so a few months ago this year, we announced our first company here in the UK. It's called Fuse Metrics, and it's in the area around family entertainment and activities. What they do is they help to power a lot of leisure and attractions, their booking, their point of sale system, then also from finance, HR, food and beverage, all the things that you kind of need to run the business kind of all in one. And for us, it fit great with our theme, because ultimately they're helping to create really delightful memories for families. Kind of their core customer profile is things like children's soft play or farm attractions or museums or zoos. And for us, we also loved the product. we saw like this is an all-in-one product that's covering a lot of the breadth, and it's backed by a team that really genuinely cares about its people. And I think that also shows up in their customers that really love the product. So it's kind of had all the ingredients that were there. And then we saw there's so much growth opportunity ahead of the company as well. And so I think all combined, we thought that it would be a perfect fit for Aslin Software.
It's been founder-owned, founder-run for over 20 years. And we see a lot of the positive impact of that stability. Team are really tight with each other, felt like a family. Then they do treat customers with so much care. And when customer tickets come in, like people across different teams work together trying to solve these customer demand. At the same time, we feel the company is at the inflection point where it's been growing nicely, very profitable, but then there's so much more growth and so much more we can hope to scale up the business and generate bigger impact. And it's just also a very happy business to be looking at, because your customers are, running a snow center or running a soft play, farm attraction, and all the conferences and events you go to are just all these like fun, happy events. Everyone's talking about how can we provide the best customer experience? How can we see more smiles from our customers? I think during the diligence process, the CEO was telling us how last year a third of the UK population would have used their software, booking some experience. So that's just the kind of impact that we want to see.
That's very interesting. You were kind of touching on it there, but were you saying that the way that you did the due diligence on that was care, like that's the approach that you take? So Zoe and Elisa, thank you for sharing that about that like very tangible example of what you've just looked at. So as part of the approach of doing that and assessing it, what was this care approach that you kind of mentioned?
Yeah, we call our values care, which is collective strength, amplified impact, radical integrity, and enduring growth. They just so happen to be care nicely. Uh, we always say the number one thing we look for any potential investment is fully aligned values, because without care, without that level of trust, we can't see how we can truly be long-term partners together. And we also don't want to run a diligence process where we come from distrust. We have to triple check everything. We actually want to understand the business, build that trust, find the best solution for the founder, for the current team, and then start talking about the growth even when we were doing diligence. So Infuse Metrics is a great example where through the early interactions, before we got into all the diligence areas, before we started talking about valuation or growth plan, we spent time with the founder, understanding his story, why he built the company, where the company is at, and we got really comfortable with that shared value through all the interactions in person, on Zoom, all over the world. I think we tried to meet the founder wherever he was at. And then that also made the whole diligence process very efficient, enjoyable.
Amazing. I like that acronym. It kind of means what it is, which is sometimes not the case. So that's quite nice. Linked to that, with your mission with Aslin, you've talked about, as you've said with this example, that it's about ultimately providing better services and care to families, and it's very specific and personal. When you think about software investment platforms. So where did that come from, and why was it important for you to lead with your values and not just financial returns?
I think when it goes back to when we were setting the strategy for Aslin Software, we knew we wanted to pick a theme, and we wanted that theme to be quite meaningful for us and to be an area in which we felt like providing better software was then ultimately going to be able to have a positive impact on people's lives. And when you think about families, they come in many different shapes, forms, look very different, but at the end of the day, everyone is part of a family. And so for us, we just see that as like so motivating. And then the more that we got into talking to the providers and operators in these different areas, as mentioning like, a daycare or a nursery, or maybe someone who's running like a skilled nursing facility, we just saw a lot of things are still done on paper. There's still a lot of clipboards out there in the world, a lot of paper tickets, when we talk about the family entertainment space as well. And so we just felt like there was so much also market opportunity to be writing better software. And yes, there is software out there today, but it also is in some ways just like digitizing the paper. It's like doing, Excel or PDF or having simple forms, when actually we felt like we can help to provide the software that's actually going to be helping people to streamline their workflows, do things more efficiently, so then they can use their time to be providing better care, better guest experience, really creating more of those, happy memories for people. And so I think for us, it's just incredibly motivating and gets us out of bed every day, thinking about, the number of families that our group of software can ultimately impact.
Throughout this conversation, I can really see from both of you that like the values do actually matter, right? They're not just, I'm sure we've all seen or worked in many companies where there's been values on the wall that have perhaps not have been reflected in the workplace, but that really doesn't seem to be the case here. Like you do actually live your values. And you mentioned, you wanted to build a company that was reflective of you both as a team and like bringing your kind of true authentic selves to that. But you are also building like a company in a very male dominated space, software investing, M&A, not traditionally values driven, shall we say. Do you feel like because you have this like high emphasis on values, or that your approach is a bit different, do you think that's been received differently because of your gender, or has that not been your experience?
Yeah, I think one of our investors actually tracked the market very well, and they told us Aslin Software is the first software serial acquisition platform founded by 2 women. And for us, that's actually very freeing. When you are the first of anything, you are at liberty to design and make decisions, not copying other people. So we can actually structure the company and decide our approach coming from really first principles approach. What makes sense to us, what feels right for us, and what would actually motivate both us and our companies to work together for decades to come. It was in general very well received by our supporters in our network, by investors in Aslin Software. But there are definitely people who said no. They were like, this is too unconventional. Or like, we don't back this kind of structure. That's also fine. It's a two-way selection. When we are radically honest with what matters to us and our values, and people who don't align with our values can choose to say no to us.
I think it's also when we have conversations with founders and entrepreneurs, I think it's just when you show up and you're genuine and you're authentic and yourself, like that, you can't fake that. That's just who you are. And I think that builds such, just from the get-go, a level of trust. And that just then can build over time as you talk with someone, over a few months, a year. I think we've seen that then we do stand out. We do have a unique strategy, a unique approach. Zoe and I, just the fact that we're women, we look different than a lot of the other investors that they're talking to. And I think it's really gratifying when you see that resonates with entrepreneurs. And even earlier this week, I had a founder who I've been chatting with since last year, and he wrote to me and was like, I've actually made the decision over the weekend. I'm going to sell my business, and before I go out and talk to the market, I want to talk to you. And I think that's the exact position that we want to be in. And I think you only get to be there when you've already established that you have those shared values, because it is mutual. You're looking for that overlap. And that for us is the number one thing that we look for when we're talking to founders, beyond the product, the financials of the company, if there isn't that shared values, that's not a company that we want to have part of Aslin Software.
It sounds like having these like really defined values probably really simplifies your internal decision making process, right? Because you can just be like, yes, no.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it's with our whole team as well. Like they hold us accountable to that, they're like, but it might be an amazing company that's financially off the charts, but if there isn't those shared values, then it's one that I think also our team feels empowered to say, nope, not for us. Let's go spend our time somewhere else.
Really, really cool. Well, you mentioned you are a one of a kind platform, but you're also quite unconventional in another way because you have this like long term view. Like, you mentioned one of the companies that you acquired or you work with, they've been in operation for 20 years, which is like unheard of in software these days, right? You've talked about thinking 5, 10 plus years ahead. I guess thinking about that time frame, like what is that legacy that you want to build?
I think when we think about Aslin Software, I mean, Zoe and I, we set out like this is the rest of our career. So we're like decades into the future. We can come back, do another podcast or whatever technology wise it looks like then when we're 65, 70. I mean, I think for us is we want to continue to be building Aslin with that type of time horizon. We don't see a reason why you can't build generational software companies. You see that in other industries, and we want to have that same thing within the software world. Now, when you think like 5 years in the future, I think, we want to have tens of companies within the Aslin Software Group. We want to have a diverse leadership team across those companies. We want those companies to be full of employees who are feeling empowered and who are excited to come to work on Monday. And we also want the customers to feel that they're getting software that's truly tailored to them, solving their needs, and that as a full group that we're on the cutting edge when it comes to technology and innovation. I think if all of those ingredients together in 5 years, Zoe and I are going to be really proud, and we hope that it can serve as a data point to others to show that there is a different way to do things, not only just from an investment strategy, but also how you build an investment company and the things that are important to you.
I was just reflecting as you were saying when you said you and Zoe have decided that this is it, right? You're all in. You've made a huge commitment to each other and this company in a way, and I find that so refreshing because I feel like we're in a society at the moment, and I am generalizing, but it's where people are scared to commit. They're scared to commit to a job. They're looking for the next thing. It expands to all sorts of different things, and they're almost hesitant to say, "I'm going all in on this, and I'm going to back it, and I want to be." Is that just something that you both had in you, or did you have to like very intentionally make this pact or this commitment with each other to do that and both thinking long term, or you already had that long term thinking from both your sides?
I would say there's both. We set up Aslin Software being long-term investors, operators is a core component in our structure. And also, we've spent all the time and effort deciding to work together as co-founders. As founders of the business, if something doesn't work, we are here to change it. We're here to set it up as the best place to work for both ourselves and our team. We can't blame other people. We can't be like, it doesn't work, let me quit and find another business. We feel both empowered and obligated to actually make it the long-term home, long-term career for ourselves.
Yeah, and I would also add, I mean, you talked generally and how people are feeling, and I do think also in the tech world, you kind of get this of like, oh, I want to go and work for, the companies that are on a rocket ship. And I think part of that, and I saw this, my experience working at LinkedIn, is you get so many opportunities for growth. But I think even just thinking over the last 2 years, like our team at Azlin Software. Like we've grown, new opportunities have popped up. So for us, that's also part of it. Like it's not come and join our team and you're going to be doing the exact same role for the next 5, 10, 20 years. It's we're growing, so you're going to be able to grow as well. It's just growing within the same group, within the same peers that have those shared values. And then I think that's one of the most important parts.
I love that that's the kind of space that you're trying to create. Not just obviously for yourselves, but for others too. So people who join this, that's how you want to be thinking about it, as something that's ever evolving, and not just like static, right? But it is something that's going to be there for the long term, and what you want to do. Joe and I could ask you quite a few other questions, but we're coming on time. And so our last question to the both of you is that, for women and other people listening to this podcast and episodes, who are in investing, consulting, or operational roles, and they're thinking about starting their own thing, but they're thinking about it. Maybe it's just in their heads. What advice would you give them about making that leap?
One of the best pieces of advice I've received early on in my career was really figure out what's uniquely your strength and double down on it. Don't try to be well-rounded at everything and then you're not being exceptional at anything. So that's what I've still been trying to live up to and working hard every day. And I think that's the best advice I've got.
I think for me, the top advice would definitely be find an amazing co-founder. It's not an easy decision to start a company, to take that leap. It's not easy to build a company of any sorts, and having someone who's a true partner by your side that you can lean on. I've leaned on Zoe many, many times and vice versa. And just knowing that there's that person who has your back, I think there's a lot of power there. And especially for women, I think there's this really unique power in the sisterhood. And I think the more that you can create that community around you, the more successful you're going to be.
Okay, I'm going to take back mine. Can I use hers? That's better.
I thought they were both good. So Zoe, when you were talking about the unique strengths,
yours are good too.
Yours were definitely good, and actually very relevant to me. Last night I was having a discussion with AI, and ended up not intentionally but prompting it with some of my strengths, and we almost did the version of Ikigai or something, like with it, where it actually gave me a really powerful statement and sentence that I hadn't thought of it like that before. It reframed it, and I was like, oh, that's my unique strength, and that's potentially where I need to be going double down and really thinking about what should I be focusing on given that. So I thought it was good advice, Zoe, and Annalise too. But thank you for leaving us with that. Very useful and relevant.
It just made me thinking also, your comment of like speaking with AI. I think a core part of Aslin that we didn't actually touch on is like when we started Aslin back in 2023, 24, like we had the sense of we want to build an AI first company. And that was like before the whole kind of like ChatGPT moment and everything. And now I'm just sitting here and I just see a lot of hesitance by like women, especially to kind of like jump into that world. And it irks me. And I think that's another part of the role modeling that I think is really important to Zoe and I, of like it's another key part of like how we're doing things different, that we are unique. And I think just thinking for your audience as well, just like emphasizing that to not be afraid to embrace that, I think would be a good point to make.
I am so glad you brought that up because I am also very irked by one, the lack of, I guess, I think like women are both being like told that they're falling behind for not being on, ramped up on AI yet, but also there's like a lot of backlash against women who promote it. I don't know if you saw this whole like Reese, or what's her name? Is it Witherspoon? She had this whole like backlash last week because she was encouraging her followers to use AI. And I think, actually being a role model in this space and showing that, yes, you can use this really powerful tool to build products that are needed in the world. And yes, women can be building those companies. I think that is really great. And I'm so glad that you're both role modeling that.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for that. There's a whole other podcast that we can have on that, because I know you both said the word like irked. And obviously I think for me, the thing is I would like to obviously see more women doing that. But I think I can also understand why there's circumstances in the world as it is, like Joe's mentioning, that maybe is the reason they're hesitant to actually like dive into it. And there's like not barriers to entry, but it's maybe not set up in the way. But yeah, that's a great point to end our chat, because it's going to make us think about so many other things. But Zoe, Annalisa, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights, and also giving us a bit of insight into a type of business model that we maybe have not profiled that much on the podcast and also don't know that much about. Like, my background was in finance a long time ago, but I haven't come back to it in a while. So it's so cool to see the two of you like doing this, you know, in this space. I did an MBA, and I've got quite a few classmates who are in M&A and doing this, and it is all the men that are doing it and not women. So I think this is awesome. If our listeners want to get in touch with you both, what's the best way for them to do that?
We have all the contact information on aslinsoftware.com. Leave us a note there, send us an email if you are curious about what we're building, or if you are a founder, operator in the B2B software space. As we mentioned repeatedly during the podcast, we're always building community and trying to connect with awesome people.
Great. We will definitely put that in our show notes. Thank you very much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps others find us. Even better, share it with a friend or colleague who needs to hear this. Thanks, and see you next time.